Today we're going to go over some different updates. Maureen took a car class on transaction coordinating. Probably a good thing to do after I hire her, make sure she knows what she's doing. That's a good thing. So it was a refresher. It was a great opportunity for her to get more information so that we can share that with you guys. So we're going to be going over that in a couple minutes. I also wanted to pass out a handout that my brother Jay sent me. It's more on commercial leasing. And there's a law that they're highly recommending that you follow it now, but penalties start January 1st. And it's on notifying the tenant on the buildings, and if repairs need to be made to make it accessible to a handicapped or disabled or you know the bill I'm talking about, Mike? Your buddy wrote it.
Yeah, I know it.
So it's the main thing I want you guys to be aware of is the disclosures that you're going to need to do if you're playing around with commercial leasing at all. Landlords are going to have to do it. There's a report that they're going to need to get, so I'll let you distribute that. When it gets to the back of the room, if you don't have one, we'll get more copies for you. Now, there's a few interesting things that on the paperwork that Maureen shared with me. Well, another topic that we're going to be going over after we go over the disclosures is I want you guys to share, which on the announcement I put it out there, I'd like you to share a couple common objections that you might get when you're out working with clients. I think you're going to find that pretty much the same thing. Every once in a while I get really excited when somebody comes up with a new one that their prospect or their client's working with on why they can't list now or buy now. So every once in a while there's something odd. However, it's really pretty much 10 or 12, 15 that are just the same old ones all the time. So we're going to have some discussion on that and ways for you to be better prepared. Let's see, where are we going now? We're going to talk about some of the stuff that Maureen came up with. So what I'm going to do is review some of the items that she came up with, and then we're going to open it up to more discussion. Now the commercial one, it gets into a little bit of a long, lengthy thing, so hang with me and on this next topic, because this is going to apply to 100% of you, where the commercial is going to be something you guys can read later on. One thing we learned that the affiliated business statement for Citrus and Showcase, I was always under the impression we only needed to use it if we were using escrow or priority title, because we're part owners of priority title and then we own Showcase escrow. It's no longer Gold Star is under the umbrella of Showcase Inc. So that was removed from the disclosure. The class, though, Maureen pointed out that since Showcase Inc. is the parent corporation doing business as Century 21 Showcase, that we have to use the affiliated business statement on everything. And we're probably going to need to add homes by Showcase on there too, now that I'm thinking about it. So we need to do that as well. So just something for you guys to be aware of, that is something, because in the past I may have told you, no, you don't need to do that because we're not using the escrow. So we do need to have the affiliated business statement to be in compliance with the government. TDS, the only people who are exempt are the following. Who's got it?
Trust.
Bank-owned.
Okay, bank-owned, trust.
Only
Hold on, you were in the class. Checking the students.
Only irrevocable.
Only a revocable trust. That's correct. How'd you know, Cliff? What were some of the others? Probate. HUD qualifies kind of as both government entities.
Yeah.
HUD's a government entity. We also think of it as an REO or a foreclosure. What else? What's the BK stand for?
bankruptcy sales.
Bankruptcy sales, okay. I wasn't sure if it was bulk sales or bankruptcy sales. So bankruptcy sales. TDS isn't mandatory. However, what's our company policy on when you're doing a transaction and you represent the buyer and a TDS is not required?
You
That's
still
good.
haven't
You
signed
still, you
it.
still haven't
Yeah.
submitted and just haven't.
So we put across the top, the seller is exempt,
Right.
but I think it's critical, let me reword that. I don't think it's critical, I know it's critical that we provide the buyer, here's a list of questions that the normal seller would have to answer. These people do not have to answer these questions. It's something you may want to investigate if you think it's important. So it's very, very, very powerful thing to do. All other sellers are required to provide a TDS. Investors, corporations, FSBO, all need one. If a TDS is required, so is the SPQ. This is car attorneys telling you guys this is what we need to be doing. So let's make sure we do that. Has anybody ever had an investor say, oh, I've never even seen the house. I just bought it as a flip. I don't need to fill that out. Has anybody ever said that?
Yeah.
I've heard that. I've heard investors say that. That's not true. They need to fill it out. They don't. The reason they don't want to fill it out is they don't want to. They don't want to be. They think they're covering themselves for all the stuff that their workers are covering up. So, by not have to answer what they know. So they think they're exempt. They're not. Always answer whether a seller is occupying the property. Reminder that the items the seller checks on page 1 as being on the property doesn't necessarily promise that they're going to be there when escrow closes. Now why, and this kind of goes against logic, but once I think I even questioned more than I, but then once I thought about it, it was something that I understood why that it's on there. So the TDS needs to state everything that's on the property. However, in the contract, the RPA is going to determine what stays with the property and what doesn't. So the TDS doesn't necessarily mean, just because it's filled out, that it's staying with the property. Now this gets back into other disclosures of, and we're really talking about more of the personal property, that type thing where the buyer's not going to have to say, yes, I want the garbage disposal to stay with the property. No. If it gets into the multiple refrigerators, that's a big deal. There's one in the garage. It's also important to have knowledge that if there was one in the garage, maybe there was a leak. A more common one is somebody could have a little cooler in a study or something, and that's leaked and created some kind of damage. So there's, just to be aware, the really big thing for you guys to be aware of, more from the buyer standpoint, is don't get caught. Well, just because it was on the TDS, I thought that meant it stayed with the property. There's no guarantee. You need to be articulate and clear. And if there's something that the buyer wants, you need to put that in your purchase agreement when you're representing a buyer. You need to state that that's included with the property. And you need to really make sure you look at that stuff. You know, the other day, I was reviewing one and I missed the washer and dryer. Caught it in time, but then I had to backpedal a little bit. But they were asking for the washer and dryer, brand new washer and dryer that still had the tags on it. They wanted that. And if you guys are in a hurry, you can make those kind of mistakes.
And more.
What's that?
And more.
And more. Any questions on that? So it's really for your guys' protection, because I think it's something we haven't thought of in the past. We've always were under the impression if the TDS said all these things were there, then that meant when I move in, they're all supposed to be there. So don't make that assumption because the buyer's agent. The smoke detector and water heater statement of compliance is listed on the TDS on page 2, section 1 and 2.
So that he was just referencing that we don't necessarily need to have an extra form for that because it's already on the TDS. So.
Any of you guys still adding the second form, or are you using what's on the TDS?
I do.
Do you,
I just add it. You can. It's just if you don't have it, don't worry because it's still in the TDS.
So if you ever have an agent say, well, you need to give me that, and you're wanting to be more streamlined, it's not a requirement because it's already in there. We don't need the redundancy. Here's one of my favorites, and it's such an exciting one that I've even had Johnny help create a slide so that some of us that are more visual can actually see the slide. Agent visual inspections. How many think that agent visual inspections are mandatory by BRE? Anybody? Okay. How many think that it's not mandatory? How many think it's Jeff's rule that it's mandatory?
How many think it's stupid?
How many think it's Michael's fault? Harder at it. There's one aspect of it that I want to share with you, and there's really two components to this, guys. There's one, if you ever have to go to court and you choose not to use your agent visual, it's putting you in harm's way, like exponentially, a million times, putting you in harm's way. Because the judge is going to say, well, agent, you have a car form. And I've actually heard him say this to other agents at other offices. You have a car form, because they know the terms. Why didn't you use it? Why didn't you do the agent visual? And you get an arrogant agent who says, well, I don't have to. There's no law that says I have to. Now, how's that go over with the judge? Not well. So they really look at it as who's the professional and who's the sloppy agent. Now the chances you guys are going to get into small claims court or a legal situation is very, very, very remote and likely. But if it does happen, do you want to look like an idiot in front of your client and the judge saying, well, you know, a professional agent would have done this, this, and this, and maybe the client wouldn't have had this problem. So it's something that's not a big deal for you to do. It doesn't take that long. It is a higher level of professionalism that your clients deserve. Now there's a key little issue on that, the reason I want to share the visual with you guys, because this is where a lot of agents are making a mistake. And before I pull up the visual, in your mind on the TDS, are you familiar with where you could, if you're an agent, on the TDS, you could just answer a few questions right there? And you're reading you can make your comments right there, like 2 sentences. A lot of agents do that and they drop the ball and they don't do the next one. But what's even worse is a lot of agents that are doing an AVID aren't checking the box, see attached AVID. A huge number are not checking that box. So just for your benefit, I want to show so right here, you guys get this where it's see attached agent visual, agent notes no items to disclose, agent notes the following items, and you list a couple things. What's that? Yeah. And so half-assed is 2 and 3. Agent notes no items to disclose. That's you lose the lawsuit. Number 3, agent notes the following items, and what a lot of agents will just do is agent recommends buyer get a professional home inspection. And that doesn't cover the smell test, guys. If it becomes an issue. If it ever is an issue that the client is curious, or the judge is curious, or somebody's saying, did you do your job of an agent visual, that's not going to be doing your job. Now, for some people, what I would recommend, it's not a bad idea. Because again, as most of you understood, it's Jeff's rule that you have an agent visual. Yes?
I don't know if you're going to say this, but it is technically required by law for every agent to do an agent visual inspection.
Understand this is meeting the requirement of the law.
Right. Whether it's on here or an AVID, you still have to legally do them as an agent. It doesn't matter. And the listing agent has to provide that visual inspection to the other party within 7 days. So whether it's on the TDS as the Jeff puts it half-ass version, or it's your AVID, it's still something that as a listing agent you have to legally provide within 7 days.
So you could go ahead and do this and check agent notes the following items, and you write down 2 or 3 things. Bedroom number 3 has blue carpet or something, and you've met your legal requirement of providing a document.
Question, if you're representing the seller and you're representing the buyer, do you have to do one for the seller and one for the buyer?
Just one.
Just one. Yeah, just one.
Can you check 2 of them?
Yeah.
2 boxes? I highly would recommend.
on WinForms. Sorry, I won't let you on WinForms, but if you check one on WinForms and print it out, then you can check another one. Yeah.
I highly recommend checking the first box, see attached agent visual, and the 3rd box, and you write them there. Highly recommend you do a buyer home professional home inspection.
Yeah.
That's what I recommend that you do.
Okay.
That's really covering your bases. Now, what agents do typically, they used to do, but I know none of you guys do it anymore, is that on the agent visual, you know, they might check the box, they might not check the box, but you got to check the box, guys. But on the agent visual that you do, on almost every line it said, agent recommends buyer get a home inspection. That doesn't need to smell test. That's not you doing your job. So we need to check the box. You need to do your agent visual. And like Maureen said, I don't want, and we're going to touch on it in a minute a little bit deeper, it's got to be done and presented to the buyer within 7 days, if you're the listing agent. Now, there's a little technicality in here that I'm going to call Carr Legal and ask them the question. If you, the buyer's agent, don't give the buyer your agent visual, and it's required by law and contract, and if you don't, and you give it to them 3 days before the close of escrow, how many days does the buyer have to review it and cancel or continue? 5 days. So if you represent the buyer and you give them the document way late,
I'm extreme, so.
I believe they could cancel. If you put something on the agent visual that they didn't know
Any
about.
new disclosures,
What's that?
any new disclosure, any time, is a
Right.
reason, even if their contingencies are removed.
Right. Even if they're contingencies, if they've removed all their contingencies, you say, oops, we forgot to give you this one. They've got 5 days to look at that and cancel if they want. So
I've
that's-
threatened that on HOA docs before. You know, 'cause
That's a good one.
Never
That's
do.
that's a big one.
Say that
HOA
again?
docs.
HOA docs.
That's huge.
Right.
They never come in within 7 days, so you got the
Right.
buyer, you can tell the seller, hey, so we've got time. Matter of fact, I want my lawyer to look at it, somebody can say that.
The, another common one is the escrows quite often don't have the client sign the prelim until toward the end, when they sign loan documents. Technically, they could cancel. Quite often they don't sign the termite reports until they're in signing loan docs. They could cancel, yes.
So here's my question. Is Maureen then going to make those requirements when you're using her as a GC?
Yes. Even if she doesn't know it yet.
Okay.
We gotta get those things signed early and fast. Otherwise, it's a ticking time bomb that could blow up in your face, and guess who looks like the very non-professional.
Are we still requiring the home inspection to be signed too?
Yes, either that or the waiver. And that's another example, and it was a real-life example in this office, where there was a home inspector that emailed it to our buyer, and emailed it in the proper, no, excuse me, he wouldn't email it to the buyer, but he gave the buyer a hard copy, but he didn't believe in emailing, or didn't have the capability of emailing. And so it didn't get signed until our buyer's agent was reviewing the file and said, whoops, I didn't get this signed. So it was a 45-day escrow, and on day 43, said, oh, I needed this signed, and the buyer signed it, and signed it the date, properly, the date they signed it. You don't want to backdate it. So you might want to, but you shouldn't. So the buyer signed it, and it was an issue that went to small claims court on the home inspection. And the judge said, well, I don't get it. You put this in front of them 2 days, 3 days before it's going to close escrow, and you expect them to absorb all this information and all these issues on the property and all these problems on the property? That's not right. And so we ended up getting sued for $10,000 and lost until we appealed it and bring in the home inspector as a witness and said, no, I gave that to them in person 35 days ago. And then there was a couple other issues. Because we had no proof, we had no documentation that it was given in a timely manner. And so once the judge on the appeal saw the documentation, then we were okay. Did you have a question, Mike?
No.
Brooklyn, did you? Okay, maybe it was that auction thing we were doing. Eric?
Does the receipt for reports cover that though?
Sorry.
Like it says right on there what date you received it, and you list everything, escrow, you know.
I would say yes, as long as, yeah.
Okay, but they're not, they're like, you might get that at the end. Not at the very end. but
Depends on when they
after
date,
the
when they sign it and date it. So if they sign and date the receiver, have you ever had an item, and I just had it the other day, where the booklet wasn't in the stuff, and somebody was asking them to sign it. And the client said, why am I signing this? There's no booklet in there. So it just depends on the client. But in theory, it would work. It just depends on when they actually, we need to be getting their signature on these documents way early, is what I'm saying.
Could you put on there buyer received on 10/23 and have them sign it dated the current date they actually signed it, but have them initial the date that they received it?
That would be a better option, yes. That would be a better option.
Well, if you sent a receipt requested on an email, would that be sufficient to satisfy that condition?
I didn't receive it.
But I have the receipt that you opened it.
You have a receipt, but it didn't say what was in it.
My kid opened it.
I never saw it.
But it was addressed to your email.
I never saw it.
It's like the mail.
But I have a receipt that you opened it.
My computer broke.
Mailed to you.
So anybody could have opened it. Anybody could have opened it. Yeah, Hillary could have opened it. No, it's not a fail-safe.
Now will never be found.
The read receipt is not, what,
That means you open an email, doesn't mean you open the attachment.
what's that?
That means you open an email, doesn't mean you open the
Yeah,
attachment.
just because you open the email doesn't mean you read the
Should have
attachment.
had a virus.
Now, for some of you, we've had this discussion. What is my advice that I give you? If you're sending something like that you're asking them to sign and return and they don't sign and return, you send them another email, and it's not foolproof. You send them another email, say, hey, I just wanted to make sure that you got the other document that I mailed on such and such date, emailed you on such and such date. Would you please just acknowledge that? Otherwise, I have to tell escrow to cancel. 9 out of 10 times they respond, yes, I got that.
So
So just
that part of it is okay if they respond that way?
yeah, because I've said in the body of the email what what I sent them, and now they've responded, so now they've received it.
And then if they don't respond to that email, it's just like, all right, we gotta cancel escrow. If they don't.
Depends on the nature of the document and the high riskness of it. In theory, if it's one of the few deadly sins, yeah, we're going to have to tell escrow, stop. Now, we might have a seller that says, what do you mean you're stopping the close of my escrow? And I say, well, because they're not sending back these documents. I say, well, I don't care, close the escrow. So then we got to get something from our seller that says they understand and that they're holding us harmless and all that if they want to close the escrow.
You do a demand for performance.
Yeah, we got to do
I
a
want my
demand.
documents back,
Right.
the seller signs it, can't just,
Right. We do the process. You're absolutely right.
back to the Avid real quick.
Yeah.
And I have one right now, but I see some agents where you go and they describe the room they're standing in. Some kind of granite this and the color of everything, and I think, man, you're just exposing
Inventory
yourself
list.
so much. That's the wrong way, right?
Oh, totally. Sometimes out of arrogance, and I'm so knowledgeable, I'm so smart, I want to say that this is, and we actually had one where the person said this beautiful hardwood floors and it was laminate.
Oh, God.
Or it's not hardwood floors, it's softwood. And anybody know the difference between hardwood floors and softwood floors? Different materials. So the person got new hardwood floor out of it. Fortunately, that wasn't ours.
If you don't describe the room in some way, there's no way of telling what bedroom 1 is. What's bedroom 1? What's
So-
bedroom 2? What's bathroom 1?
Yeah, you have to describe
You have to
it.
describe.
But don't describe it in the nauseating detail that Barry was just referring to. Because if you start being the investigator and you're going through all this massive detail, and then all of a sudden you come to a room and say nothing noted, then they're going to say, well, wait, you were looking in every cupboard, you were looking under the sink, you were looking under here, you were looking under here, you were pulling out this, you were doing this.
But if you say room with pink wallpaper, blue wallpaper, and you're describing there's a hole in the wall in the room with pink wallpaper,
Perfect.
you're just saying that room has pink wallpaper, so you can say this is what bedroom number 2 is.
Correct.
Otherwise, you have no way of knowing.
And that's a perfect way to do it. You'd have to say first bedroom off the living room otherwise. So if all the rooms have the same carpet, all the same color walls, all the same everything, bedroom 1 is
The front of the house,
First
back of the
bedroom,
house.
all
front of the
bedroom,
house.
yeah.
Brooklyn.
It's like also the Avid, we took like training on this in one of these meetings, but they told you not to do, like, if there's a crack, don't be like, that's a hairline crack. You can just say it's a crack.
Not the wall.
Yeah, you're not allowed to differentiate the size of the, like how bad it is.
Correct.
Right, and if you were to say that there's 4 nail holes in this wall, in this room, this is a bedroom, and I said there was 4 nail holes in the west, whatever direction that is, bedroom, west wall. Well, then it turned out there was 8 over here. If you start talking about, if you start giving a finite number, specific number, 8, and there's 15, or there's, I say 3, and there's 20, then it's like, okay, what's going on? You only said there was 3. So you just say nail holes.
Yes.
That's critical.
Don't even say nail holes, say holes in.
That's
wall.
even better, that's even better.
Because you don't know what created
That's
the
true.
hole.
One of the things I learned maybe 10, 15 years ago was that, speaking of nail holes, is always use the word appears, so you're never liable for diagnosing what's going on. Appears to be multiple nail holes.
Yeah, and I think what Bill said is even better. There's hole, it appears to be holes,
Yeah.
because nails, all that.
Holes in the wall.
Yeah.
I just also, another thing that I've seen, and the lawyer touched on it, is don't use the word remodel, ever. Some people use whole house remodeled all over, bedroom remodeled. There was a case that he was talking about where an agent put that on their form, and it was like in the bathroom, and almost everything in that bathroom was remodeled but one thing. They took them to court and they lost. Because that one thing in that room, whether it be the toilet wasn't switched out or whatever, that one thing wasn't remodeled, and they lost because he said room remodeled or
Yeah, totally
house
remodeled is, yeah,
Yeah.
not a
We
good
don't
idea.
ever use that word, he said, because more than likely you will lose.
What would you use then?
Redone.
Upgraded or?
No, don't do any of that.
Partially upgraded. You can say partially upgraded.
You can say updated.
Yeah, you can say upgraded. But
Or
if you leave out partially, like on appraisals, it's a really big deal on upgrades. They even ask how recent were the upgrades done, and whether they're going to be, some upgrades were done. Just keep
lots
it,
of upgrades.
lots of upgrades.
You didn't say.
As long as you don't say totally upgraded,
Yeah,
you are okay.
I'm just saying partially, lots sounds a lot better than parts.
He was saying,
Or
don't
partial.
speculate on what is upgraded.
But what Maureen's saying is you can't say that, like a toilet has a lot of moving parts. So if you said it was totally upgraded or updated toilet, well, maybe there's one part that wasn't. You know, maybe that, I don't know. But anyway, just be careful the words you use as far as that. Don't paint with such a broad brush that somebody could infer incorrectly that everything was upgraded. Same way with brand new. Seller has had put in brand new appliances and used them once. They're not brand new anymore. Newer. Mold, no. Is anybody in here licensed to determine if it's mold? Okay. Discoloration? Didn't think anybody was licensed. I just wanted to make sure. Does anybody think they're licensed? Good. We've already covered, if you're the listing agent, you are required by law to provide the buyer with all the disclosures within 7 days. How many of you guys do that? Now, it's really important that if, and this is what happens sometimes and why there's a lot of panic. You get there's an offer that's, you're listing and the offer is accepted, and it's been a long weekend and you want to take Monday and Tuesday off, and then you don't turn it into your TC, or you don't even do it yourself until maybe Wednesday or Thursday, as far as getting your disclosures put together to send to your seller to get them even filled out. And you're already, by the time it all comes back, you're at day 10 or 12. You're already out of compliance. And that's not a good thing, guys. It's not a good thing. You want to have that all done in advance, and one of the things that Maureen will be working with you guys on, if you're using her department, is to try to get all those disclosures filled out by your client before the offer comes in.
I know one of the things that Donna was doing was that when we got new listings, we gave them to her already, and she worked on getting those disclosures done so that we already had them when we went into escrow. Is that something you think we should do?
That's what I was, that's what I was just saying I want to do.
Yeah, I have people already that give me their listings, and it's one of two things. They either have me send them for e-sign, or they have me, like Gina likes to meet with her clients a lot, so she has me make her a complete packet. And so I'll put her together a packet, I'll put it on her desk, tell her it's ready, she'll get it signed, she'll bring it back. I can do whatever you guys prefer me to do. It's just when you give me the listing, just say, hey, e-sign, make me a packet. Just if I wanted you guys to give me direction on how your clients, or you want to handle that with your clients, I'm more than willing to do that for you guys. Some people do it, some people don't. It's just what you guys prefer, but I can't do that.
And the only thing that happened the other day, please, if you get all those disclosures filled out by hand by your seller, please don't take your original and send it off to the first set of buyers. There's still a high fallout ratio. So then the sellers have to fill it out all over again because you guys cannot fill it out. So we want to at least have a copy that we can then send out to the next buyer or the next buyer.
So just to be clear, so when you're doing a listing, you can have all those disclosures done at the same time?
Absolutely.
Okay, and there's no,
Absolutely.
policy against that? Okay.
No, matter of fact, that's even better.
They do it
You know, it depends on your situational, guys. If you've got a very difficult seller, or you just don't really, you just haven't, whatever the situation is, and you want to get it signed and get out of there and follow up with the disclosures later, that's fine. Somebody else?
I just wanted to also make a point that when you guys are having your sellers fill out the TDS and SBQ, a lot of times they miss questions, so review that, and also review if they answer yes, review if they wrote an explanation. I've, not necessarily as much here, but I've had other agents send me SBQs that they answer yes to the question on claims of insurance on the property, or things of that nature, and I have to respond to them, okay, there's no explanation, can you send me a supplemental form, can you do that? So just for our purposes, if they answer yes, especially to a question as important as that, make sure there's some type of explanation, because I get that a lot from other people, and
have you guys ever seen that? Have you ever seen that?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Where
just something to be aware of.
you're going over it with your buyer, and the seller said yes, and then it's like, well, yes to what? And I'll get back to, I'll remember to send him an email and ask him, and then that somehow gets forgotten, and then you close escrow, and the seller says, well, yeah, I said yes. You know, this,
Well, you can't have them sign it if it doesn't have the explanation, don't have them sign it.
correct. That's the next step.
One thing I was just gonna note, it's sad but tricky a little bit. I always do all of the disclosures first before the listing contract, and they're so freaking over it and tired by the time the listing contract comes. They just sign, they don't even know what it says, they don't argue about commission, nothing. It works every time.
Yeah.
Wear them down.
Do whatever technique works for your personality, Barry.
I just don't do them all because some of them at the top say this is an addendum to a purchase contract. So at the listing, you don't have a purchase contract, and the name's not on there, and they're saying, oh, you're seeing that the buyer's been delivered this document. The buyer, no, there is no buyer.
There's some that you can't.
There's TDS and SBQ, a few of them like that, but some of them have to stay out.
MCA should be given to the buyer at the time of signing contract and to the seller at the time of listing. Who remembers what an MCA is?
Market condition advisors.
Sometimes they get signed afterwards. So here's the situation. We write a contract, we negotiate everything, and then I get that signed 2 or 3 days later, different date on it. Does anybody see a problem with that? It's like back passwords. Can't do that. I mean, we can do them because a lot of people do that, unfortunately. But you're supposed to, it's almost like if you did the, good example of it is the agency. You get a listing, and then you realize a week later you forget to get the agency signed, and you have it signed a week later. Everything's void. Everything's void. You get it. You don't. The agency and the purchase contract now is all incorporated in. It's not as cumbersome as it used to be. However, the old days it would also void out your contract. You'd be toast.
Is the MCA still required? I mean,
Agency?
MCA.
Oh, MCA? Yeah, market conditions. Yes.
Doesn't everybody know?
I've never used it.
It's not necessarily a required form, but a lot of people do it, and the point.
So if you use it, date it before.
Yeah, the the
I'm not
point
saying
of,
we have to start.
Correct.
but a lot of people do use it and they date it after, and what it outlines to the buyer is that they're the ones determining the price they want to offer, or they're the ones, you know, we're giving them the recommendation, but they actually are the ones determining it. If you give it to them 10 days after, that actually was a case as well, and that MCA came into play because they did have one, but it was signed way after, and it kind of negates the point of the form. If you're going to use the form, use it correctly, is what he's trying to say. You
Does
don't have
anybody-
to use it, but if you use it right.
I don't even know why the form still exists, because everybody knows the condition, the market.
We won't worry about that. Just if you use it, make sure you sign it right.
I get it from listing agents, wanting my buyer to sign it, and,
Then I wouldn't sign it.
oh yeah, I never have to sign it, but it's, I tried to explain it to one lady, and she just, my office requires it. And I said, I'm gonna send you an email and say we won't sign it.
Right.
I never heard back.
FERPTA.
Disappears after that.
How many of you guys ever receive, it's your buyer, and the seller's agent sends it back saying seller will not provide the social?
All
All the time.
What do you do?
Then you
They have to-
qualified
substitute.
Yeah, qualified substitute,
Okay.
that's correct.
Now, do you follow up and make sure you get a QS? Some of us do, some of us don't.
Kind of depends on what escrow.
Yeah, some escrow companies won't provide
Because if
it.
it's an in-house escrow, you can't do it.
So if you, right, so there's another provision for that. So if the escrow company won't do that, broker-owned escrow companies aren't allowed to be with QS, the qualified substitute. So there has to be something in their escrow instructions that protect everybody and protect your buyer, that the buyer and seller signs. It basically says that if the buyer requests it, escrow will provide it. So many escrow companies don't have that in their escrow instructions, ours does.
Did you say if it's a
Oh,
broker-owned
it's a
escrow?
good- Yeah, they
give
cannot be
them
the QS.
Oh.
So you could ask them, please sign it, please sign it, please sign it, and they can't, there's no value.
I'm talking about the FERPTA, right?
Right. Well, there's the FERPTA, but if the seller won't provide their social, then usually the escrow fills out the qualified substitute form, but if they won't fill it out, then you need to make sure in the escrow instructions that it has the wording that if requested, escrow will provide that social security number.
Or you require it from the seller.
That again?
You couldn't say in the file.
No.
No.
What's a QS?
If it's your,
Qualified substitute to provide the social security number to the buyer. We just had one where we wrote a $55,000 check in 2015, early 15, to the IRS for a withholding for the seller. And then the IRS misplaced the money. And fortunately, they tracked it down and found the money. But that $55,000, because it was a foreign person, if that couldn't have been documented, our buyer would owe technically $55,000, the buyer that bought the house, $55,000 to the IRS.
unless they had a fully executed FERPTA or the QS. If they
Right.
have those documents, then the buyer's not held liable. But if we can't get a QS from escrow, we really need to push the other agent. The seller legally has to provide the buyer that. They can't get around it. You can cancel your escrow for it. Legally, in the contract, it says the seller has to do that. If you can't get a QS from escrow, then I would just say you really try to push it on the agent if it's your buyer.
So
because
real
you
easy
don't
way,
want- you want
really
to
easy
protect
way for you
buyer.
guys to remember this. You get a FERPTA, no social security number provided, raise your hand, ask for help. And then we'll help you out and solve the problem.
What if they provide a false, what if they just put whatever social security number on there? Is that verified by escrow or?
That our buyer would be off the hook,
Yes.
yes.
It just seems like a FERPTA document is going against like normal procedures right
Then they
now.
can put that.
Can't,
And one at a time, one at a time.
escrow is so concerned about non-public private. Nobody's trading information at all, and then here
No, I agree.
we're taking socials and sending them to agents we don't even know, buyers. It just doesn't sound, I was gonna say something to you soon. It's better not to have it on there, I think. Some other document would be better.
Yeah, no, I agree. So if we use the qualified substitute, where escrow is holding it in their files, and so they gotta fill out a form taking that responsibility, or the escrow company, like ours does, says, we have it, and the seller's given us permission to release it.
So for the FERPTA, they would select their options and then say, see qualified
Yes.
QS or whatever.
Yeah,
Okay, so you still get the FERPTA, just not the social.
correct.
Does the buyer actually have to have it, or as long as it's with the escrow company, it's okay?
That it's okay, because
Right,
then if they ever
right.
need it, it can be given.
Because It's weird getting some random.
Well, and the QS doesn't have any of that information. The QS is just filled out by escrow, and escrow fills it out saying, we have this on file, I'm the escrow officer, this is the escrow. So that would
And
be in
that's
your
legal,
file, and
and that's legal to do.
Okay.
And then the buyer can provide that if they have that.
Doesn't escrow have its own account book form that they sign during, as one of the forms?
Yes.
So doesn't that also protect the real estate portion of it? or-
We're protected if we do it the way, you see, if it's a broker-owned escrow, they're not allowed to be the QS.
Okay.
And they're not allowed to distribute that document to the buyer without permission from the seller. So it's a matter of wording in the escrow instruction. So for right now, if it's not in your, if the form isn't filled out with the social, and you don't get the QS, raise your hand and we'll help you. Okay?
I have
Yes.
a question, Mark. Well, I had an example last week where a very salaried seller was reluctant to put their social number down, and I said to them, if you put it down, it's not going to go anywhere, it's going to be kept in our office, it's going to be confidential. Is that not true? Is it going to be distributed more broadly?
Yes. We're going to put it on the internet.
It could be viewed by the buyer.
It could be, it's supposed to be given to the buyer.
The buyer
Social
has to sign
security
it.
number?
Yes.
At the bottom, the buyer says, I promise to keep it private.
Yeah,
And
but
they sign.
So what most people do is they don't put it on there, and escrow is either a DOC escrow, Department of Corporations, and they can be the QS. If it's a broker-owned qualified substitute, or the broker-owned escrow, as long as they have it in their escrow instructions, the wording properly, then they'll be all hold it.
So we should just have them put somebody else there?
Just leave it blank.
what?
The Social Security, leave it blank.
Is it blank?
Because you're not going to provide it to the
I know,
buyer.
but don't you have to write, like on file with escrow, don't you have to write something there?
You could, but I just say leave it blank. Go ahead.
But you're gonna have the QS in there
Right.
with it, so.
Correct. Yes, Bill?
What part of the escrow instructions from a broker-owned escrow such as Stacy or?
I have no idea what page it's on.
Is it in, well, is it?
It's in the escrow instructions.
Okay,
Separate
well,
document.
Okay.
It's in the 6-page, 3-page, whatever number of the pages it is. It's a different paragraph. Was there somebody else's hand up? Okay, there's another law going into effect January 1st, 2017 for single-family properties built before 1994. Compliance requires installation of water-conserving plumbing fixtures, toilets, shower heads, faucets, required if you own a home, regardless if you are selling it or not.
This is an old bill that just came.
Yeah, it was
It's going into
passed in
effect.
2009, but it's going to be.
It's going into effect January 1st, 2017.
Built before 94?
Built before 94. Required if you own a home, regardless if you're selling it or not. Check box on TDS if these have been installed. This is not a point of sale requirement, but however something to be aware of.
Was it a business?
So if it's not water efficient,
Then you have to check
it
the
doesn't
box.
affect sale or anything, they can still sell it.
Correct.
Later, they'll do that.
Somebody's
They'll
gonna have to do
require
that.
you to do something like
It's
that
a
later.
disclosure that if you don't check the box, you close escrow, and then the buyer finds out later on, the seller would be liable to upgrade everything.
They've given people 7 years to supposedly be able to do it.
What's everything? Sprinklers?
It was a big deal.
They just referenced toilets, faucets,
Shower heads.
shower heads. Well, there's a box now on the TDS that says like water
Yeah.
conservation fixtures or something along those lines, and they either check that or not. But it's just something to be aware of, because if it's your buyer and it's gonna be a new law, something you might wanna ask about or look
Is
into.
that something that the lenders are gonna look at and ask
Yeah.
for?
Very possibly.
Is that what you're
Eventually.
saying?
It's possible,
Well,
yeah.
that you don't have to be selling the home, you mean if?
If you're
Yeah,
living in the house, if you're living in the house that was built before 1994,
Okay.
you were told by the government, you need to do all these things.
Yeah.
It was a few
Whether you're
years
selling your
ago.
home or not.
It was a few years ago. What'd you say, Michael? When was it announced?
2009.
2009,
It was
you
a
were
big deal
told,
then, everybody was pissed off.
Yeah.
I didn't care about
We
it.
They
forget.
didn't enforce it until, they're not gonna enforce it until January edition. It's already been
What do you do about?
passed, it's just now they're gonna actually start enforcing it in January. I don't know how they're gonna start enforcing it.
So I would imagine that we're gonna get something from our insurance.
This is the way you're gonna, you know, you're supposed to do it. Matter of fact, I think Highland even said they're no longer gonna be coming out inspecting automatically. Did you read, John, or did you see that? I think it was
I
Highland.
didn't understand the headline, right?
You saw that? Highland isn't gonna be coming out and inspecting everybody's houses unless there's a problem that they need to. So it's just kind of interesting. But anyway, so how would they know? Maybe your water consumption is way high. Who knows? I'm not really concerned how they're going to know. It's just something you guys need to know, that you need to, if they haven't made those improvements, we need to make sure that you check that. Because if you infer that they've done all the improvements, all these upgrades, and then later on the buyer finds out that nobody disclosed that they hadn't been done, the seller would be liable for it, just like anything else. They'd be liable for it.
But just to clarify, does not impede this, or doesn't hinder the sale?
Correct.
As long as they just mark it that it has or has not.
Unless the lender starts saying that they needs to.
Yeah, or the
But right now,
I don't know how.
right now, no.
FHA will get on first.
Yeah.
It'll be that, and then it'll be the
That
windows,
could
and then it'll be
be
the roofing.
a
What are the
potential
items again?
lawsuit if, you know, if I was selling a house right now and the seller marked that it didn't have that stuff,
Guys, one at a time.
but they didn't tell the buyers that that's a new regulation and the buyers had no clue, and then they had to do it down the road, they would go back and sue them, I would think.
Potentially.
Because they marked that it wasn't done and they knew,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know,
Yep.
it's scary.
One other thing,
What are the items again? Toilets, faucets,
Shower heads.
shower heads, bidet.
And where do we find that stuff?
That actually is.
In the bathroom.
Well, it's not, but no, it is.
Bill, did you write that last one down? It's important for you.
what?
Is that found on?
Where do we
the
find
list?
shower heads?
Is that in the information specifically what has to be done? This stuff? or-
I have a slide on it, I'll look and.
Copy of the slide, you can email it out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, lastly on this topic, and I do want to show you a couple other slides though.
There's actually gonna be a new car form for it. And I'll find that
Okay.
abbreviation. Or there might already be one. I'll look into that and let everybody know. But he said something about having a car form for it.
So when you're communicating with your clients, report only the facts. Don't speculate. If you're pulling information from a source like the MLS, square footage, disclosure to the buyer where you receive the information, disclose to the buyer where you receive the information. For example, per the MLS, the square footage is boom.
There was a court case on that too. Someone said, the buyer's agent said, well, this is a square footage, 1425. And he didn't say, well, that's what the MLS said, or that's what the tax record said, whatever. He just told his buyer that. Well, come to find out, I don't know why they had it checked. For some reason they did, it was less than that. They went and sued, they won because they said that the agent didn't do his due diligence. He told them that this was a square footage. He didn't reference where he got the information. He said this is a fact, pretty much, and it really wasn't a fact. So if you're gonna reference things like that from the MLS, he said just be careful on how you word that and maybe disclose how you found out that information. That way you don't, I know, it seems petty, but it was real things that actually really happened. So just to protect your guys' self, if you get information from somewhere, kind of tell them where you got the information so they know it's not you passing a fact.
John, you had a question a minute ago? Something about as is?
Well, on the toilets and the water head, shower head, if somebody's selling the house as is,
We just have to, that's what
the
the,
money to fix it up.
remember guys, when the seller's selling something as is, it's the buyer's, it says in the contract, it's as if. The buyers, through the reading the disclosures and doing their inspections, the buyer gets to determine what as is. So if they're doing their inspections and the seller knows that they didn't upgrade stuff, and they don't say that they've upgraded to the new water efficient da-da-da-da, they have some liability.
So that just happened to me. We accepted as is, I did an inspection, I submitted a closure report. And they agree with it. It's not gonna do it.
Good, good. Then I got a couple more things, yes.
I don't know if anybody does this, but I did it, so I wanted to point it out. You know, in the MLS, when you're inputting a new listing, it's very tedious, and I had seen that the listing was, like if the listing was just listed before, you can autofill the information. You better be really careful, because I did that on the house next door to my mother-in-law's house, and it was actually listed before with my brother-in-law. So I put it in there, and I actually had it, like, I had offers on it, and I had it in there at like 1,300 and something square feet, and it was actually 1,100 square feet. And we caught that, and we ended up getting like 20,000 less for the house, and I looked like an idiot, and I'm like, what the heck?
Yeah, it's not a good idea
yeah.
to emulate other people's, use their work.
I always say per listing age, like I'll say per the agent, like during the communication.
Per the agent, per the MLS, per the whatever. Yeah. This one's really important. Yes, John.
Just going to, I heard the comment. The listing I did recently, I took all my data off the property profile I got from the title company.
Yeah.
And I relied on that.
Yeah.
And I have it in the file.
Sure, that's good. This one's a big one to me for a couple reasons. We seem to be still struggling with the seller. You guys are going to write a counter, and the seller accepting this subject to the attached counter. Quite often this box is not being checked. Not being checked, which means there was no counter. Okay? So the other thing that's a real problem with this is, well, the seller says, well, I don't want to sign this until we negotiate this counter, until I know for sure they accept the counter. So this comes in, they won't sign it. Negotiate a counter, that takes 3 or 4 days. So they accept the counter, and they date that on Thursday. And then they go back on Friday or Saturday to deal with this, and they sign this after they've signed the counter. That's not possible. So it's now you've got things all jacked up as far as your time frames.
I said if we're doing a counter, when we talk about it, then I don't have them sign it right away. We do it all at one time. I say, here's your counter, here's your contract. Even if I do e-signatures, I just send it to them all at one time.
But see, the problem with e-signatures is it dates it. It has a date stamp. This technically should be signed the same day you write the counter. So the date on your counter at the top, say it's August 1st, this should be signed August 1st. Because you're saying you're accepting this attached to this. So if you date it after that, it doesn't make any sense. And legally, if that ever went somewhere, I don't know what could happen, but it doesn't make sense.
It just creates confusion.
So that's what I'm saying. I send the counter, okay, say it's my listing. I send the contract and the purchase contract and the counter at the same time to my client and have them sign it all at one time.
Yeah,
then you'd be okay.
Yeah, as long as the date on the counter isn't
Hold
on, what?
I think the confusion is the date that it's created versus the date it's signed.
Right.
This one's saying which date was it, prepared, not the date that it was signed. You can prepare it on,
Correct. The date that they're being executed is a big deal.
Yeah.
But you could create a massive confusion on somebody signing something that was created, signing. It could make it confusing all the way around. It sounds like, Barbara, your way is okay. It's just some of them, the purchase contract is dated after the counter is dated.
Right.
And that's what doesn't work.
But do we know how to deal with the fact that zip forms, the digital signing date is wrong? And just like last night, we signed a document and it showed up that it was signed today. It's off by like X amount of hours. How do we fix that?
It's on Eastern time.
Yeah, how do we fix that?
Is yours on Eastern time?
Well, do I fix it? Is it my setting
Yes.
in my zip forms? Is that how
Should
I
be.
do it?
I don't know, I would think so, but I can play with it.
You two guys get with that and see if you can figure that out.
That don't make sense, because I've sent zip form to Florida on different time zones.
Well, it just depends on what yours
By
is.
your time zone.
What your time zone.
Maybe it's the
I
top.
understand, but if I send it at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it's 6 o'clock.
A date for the
Yeah.
counter.
But if yours set, anyway, should double check the sentence. Double check the sentence. There's one more item I want you guys to see on this.
So you want to.
We've already discussed this, but I wanted you guys to see. We've already discussed this, but I wanted you guys to see where the seller has 7 days to get all the disclosures to the buyer. Okay? The buyer has 5 days after delivery of any items to make a decision. So if you're waiting until the last second, That's not good. You're really at jeopardy. And how horrible would that be if you're representing a seller and the buyer's able to cancel 2 days before it's going to close escrow, and you have to tell your seller, well, you know what, I'm really sorry, but I screwed up. I didn't have them sign anything at all during this process. I waited till the last minute just because it was more convenient for everybody.
That's not the way to do it. You say, I sent it to him on time, he signed it, and now I'm missing something other than that.
There you go, Barry.
Hold on a sec.
Escrow is not getting the HOA documents until like the end of the transaction. And several of my escrows lately have been like that, where they won't sign off on the contingency of the HOA and anything could happen, and that's annoying. So I don't, what are we supposed to do about that?
Double check, because the seller's supposed to have pay for it, and it's not supposed to come out of the buyer's deposit. That's the change in the contract a year or two ago. So you need to make sure your seller is prepared to write a check to order the HOA document. So you need to make sure that you prepare your seller that this is a requirement of them, because that could take 2 weeks just to get that figured out. So make sure that you're communicating with your sellers.
That's for all HOAs?
Yeah, all HOAs.
But most of them never even order it until you go escrow. So now, like she said, now you're against the clock. So the trick is to get the check up front, order up front, even before you open escrow.
How long are they good for?
I mean, they're good for probably 90 days.
Well, it depends on the sales price of your house. If you're dealing with a $500,000 house and it takes 60 days to get an escrow, you wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah, and then to get a recertification, it's going to cost you $200-300.
And there's also ways that you can do it express. So what you would do is you take a new listing. I would get a hold of the HOA, find out what their turnaround time is, find out what everything's going on.
Shouldn't every homeowner in the HOA have a copy of them?
But it's not of any value after 3 months.
And you never know if there's pages missing. The attorney recommends you get a full new set, if there's pages missing, and they find that out later.
Got it.
Oh.
Is anybody fighting the HOAs to get our stuff in 7 days like we have now?
There's a law that says how quickly they've got to respond. I don't know what that answer is. But what's happening is people are requesting it, not paying them. Then they respond back saying, we're not going to give it unless you pay us.
So collect a check.
That's what I said in the beginning. Is you're taking a listing as an HOA, tell your sellers, we're going to need to write a check very quickly, but we're not going to wait. We're not going to do it immediately, but very soon we're going to need to write a check to get those HOA out. It's important to have expectations.
Just one last thing. So, nowadays, HOAs are being managed by big HOA management companies. So a lot of them just go online, you pay online, and you get it like in 2 days. So that's the good thing, unless they're not being managed by one of those big management companies. But I'm finding a lot of that.
But then you have your buyer remove all inspection contingencies with exception of the HOA. That's all you can do.
Yeah, that's all you can do. The next topic is going to take way longer than what we have because we're already past, so I'm going to save it for next week. But I would like you guys to now you have a little extra time, to write down the 3 or 4 most common objections you guys have when you're out prospecting, listing appointment, whether it's price, whether it's commission, whatever it is, so that we can have a real quality roundtable discussion or square room discussion about how that plays out. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. Plus, I also wanted to mention there's a couple really good programs that will help you guys with that. Mike Ferry's is one of the best. This guy, his boot camp is really, really powerful. The reason it is so powerful is there's nowhere for you to hide.
You're talking about his productivity
Yeah,
school?
his productivity
I
school.
still swear by that today.
There's nowhere for you to hide. Now, there's also, through the Craig Proctor system, I think just as powerful of information and data, maybe even more so. However, it's more for the entrepreneurial agent that isn't looking for a place to hide, and they have the discipline to sit down and listen to the videos, listen to the role playing, really practice it and do it, have groups of people that are willing to do it. That works really, really well and as equally as powerful. The reason the Mike Ferry is more powerful is because you go and you're going to be sitting with people, you're going to be role playing with people, you're not going to want to say, what's up?
They teach you, and you are there, you are doing it, and it is
So
awesome.
there's one coming up, I think, in first part of December in Anaheim. It's $350. There is a,
198.
is it 180? So
Yeah.
as far as it's a 4-day workshop, if you really want to be an amazing success at this business and you're willing to put yourself through a little bit of pain, it is a powerful. But guys, really, it doesn't matter. Oh, it doesn't really matter. Is that one your voice? Okay, tell James to be quiet. Okay, guys, it doesn't matter if it's Mike Ferry, Tom Ferry, Brian Buffini, or the Proctor trainings. It's whatever one that you'll put into place, because they're all good. They all have a little different twist to it. I couldn't stand Mike Ferry for years, just because I thought he was too
Oh, no,
hardcore.
he's teaching this one himself. That's unheard of, yes.
He is hardcore, but he
He's
does
hardcore.
get results. Tom is a nicer, friendlier, watered-down version. Brian Buffini is a totally different. This is more feel-good kinesthetic, and Craig Proctor is more about using the right language. So his is more even an NLP concept.
I think this is like the most important thing for new agents because
The foundation.
it's embedded in you, and we all get, so even me today, I get nervous when people give us obstacles. And you know, you don't want to clamor around and try to figure out what to say. It needs to be inherent in you, and it just comes out. And that's
So I
what
wrote
this
down
will
that
teach you.
it's Mike Ferry's program is great for brand new agents, but maybe even more important for experienced agents that have wandered on.